everyone, I'm Jennifer. In today's video I'm gonna draw a cute little lion cub with colored pencils. With this drawing I decided to try out the pastelmat from, I hope I'll say it correctly, Fontaine or something like that. And I really liked it. It does eat away at your pencil a lot, so beware of that, because it's gonna cost you a lot of new pencils, but you get very nice rich colors with it and you can layer endlessly, and I really like that about the paper. So let's move on to the demonstration. I start out by lightly blocking in the first layer of the background. I always start out with the background because it gives me a sense of mood I want to create in the picture and also helps me deciding what colors I want to use on the main subject, in this case the lion cub. I used many layers of orange, reds and browns and blend them with the Zest-it solvent to darken some areas up. I again try to avoid using black and instead layer colors such as dark sepia and dark indigo blue or dark purples or dark reds to get a nice deep dark color. As I mentioned before, I decided to use pastelmat for this piece, which, as the name implies, is designed for pastel mediums, which means that it has a lot of tooth, and because of this you may have noticed already how easily I draw with the white pencil on top of the darker areas. And this is a really nice feature this paper has. The pencils act much more opaque than on non-sanded surfaces, such as watercolor papers, such as Faber or other drawing papers like Bristol, vellum, or you name it. They act more like paint on this kind of paper. Even the very transparent white Polychromos pencil for Faber Castell. Other pros of this paper is that it takes almost an infinite amount of layers and it blends like a dream. It takes solvents very well and you don't have to be sparse with it because it can take a lot of it. And also it doesn't buckle because it's quite heavyweight paper. The only con I can think of is that it literally devours your pencils. So it requires you to replace your pencils much more often, because really it eats away at them. Anyway, when I draw fur, I also start by blocking in, again with an orange and brown colors in light layers on top of each other, and use solvent to blend them to get a nice even look and get rid of the grainy dry strokes. I block in the white areas first, so they won't be accidentally get colored over. Even though pastelmat allows you to use white over dark, I still prefer to keep those whites untouched, just to make sure they won't end up too dark. Then I go over the darker fur with a sharp white pencil and create individual hairs. This is quite a tedious, time-consuming thing, but it does get me the soft and realistic look I'm looking for. After I'm done with the white layers of hairs, I go in with darker browns and repeat this progress to get more depth and color back into the fur. When I think one part looks good, I move on to a new area and again block it in the same manner. First coloring the white and then the darker bits. For really dark areas such as inside the ears, nose, lip and eyes, I use mainly layers of dark browns, reds and blues to get a deep blackish color. If I use black at all, it would only be used sparsely in between layers to get a bit of extra dark. I often go back and forth between parts to add some more value and contrast. Especially on this paper I found I like to work in larger areas at once than I would like on smoother paper, in which I like it better to concentrate on smaller areas at a time and to complete those, before I move on to a new part. At some point the cub was a bit pale in contrast to the rich reddish background, so I occasionally go back and forth in with reds and yellows to match the fur with its surroundings. Just be careful when you do this that you don't overdo this, otherwise you might end up with a cute tomato kitty. Also, when you work with a lot of warm colors, it will do wonders to add cooler colors in, for example, the shadows. I used a lot of blues around the eyes and in the darker parts of the fur. This helps you getting more contrast in your picture. Now for the last part of this lion, I'm not going to focus too much on the details because I want the main focus to be on the lion's face, so the body will remain a little bit out of focus. I once again start by mopping out the fur with a white pencil and go over the whole thing with an orange. Because I applied white first, it will still be visible when I layer other colors on top. This will make it much easier for me to see where I should place the shadows. So after that's done, I darken places up with a dark indigo. This again because it creates a nice, cool contrast against the reds of the background and the highlights in the fur. Then I use dark sepia to darken the darkest bits up. After that, I go back in with orange, reds, and ochre to glaze the cub's chest to add some highlights and reflective lights matching the background color. Then I'll use a yellow luminance pencil to go over those highlighted areas again to brighten them up a little bit more. Also some parts in the face which I felt needed a bit more oomph. Then going back in with a dark sepia to add a bit more darkness to the shadows. I do this quite often when I feel like something needs a little bit extra. Then adding a little bit more white details on the back of the line, which should reflect a little bit of cooler light. Then a bit of brown to darken up some areas to give it more of a natural color flow. I just keep doing this until I feel I'm satisfied with how it looks. For some extra highlights, I'm using some Neocolor II from caran'dache. These are quite opaque, so you can get really strong colors out of these. They're very nice for adding some real highlights there. Doing some final touch-ups. Also on the snout, because I felt it wasn't wide enough. I just really like strong contrasts. Finally, I'm using a white Prismacolor pencil to map out the last final details, such as the whiskers and some wisps of hair, before I go in with a rigger brush and white calligraphy ink to make them stand out some more. Anyway, this was it. Thank you for watching again, and I hope it was helpful. And hopefully we'll see you next time in the next video. Also, you can find the full material list in the comment section of this video.